city who value old things and value history to want this to be preserved. And if we don't do something about slowing down this business of if you have the room, you can rent it weekly, then this is going to grow into something else. Somebody else is going to have a new version of this. And it's going to further erode that neighborhood. And it's going to keep growing and growing until finally you have boarding houses and you have Lord knows what, all renting by the day or by, 2 or 3 days at a time. I think we have to do something about it now. I think we have to be fair with the people that have been indulging in this. I just don't think that we have people who haven't known about this law that have been doing this for 2 years or so. I don't think the law is that old to begin with, but I think we have to do something about it to preserve these neighborhoods, but we have to be fair. We have to give people enough opportunity to change what they're doing. There's no reason why they can't apply for a CUP, and if what they're doing is not eroding the neighborhood, if it's not creating any damage, if it's not doing any harm, then they probably can get their CUP. But I think we have to have a moratorium now to stop anybody else from taking advantage of this 199 thing until we get this settled. So if nothing else, when we get done with this discussion, I would like them to make a motion that we reinstitute that moratorium and not issue any more 199s for dwelling in Eureka Springs. But I don't know whether they should do that now or later.
Mr. Mitchell.
I concur with what Joyce has said here. I think if you look back at the beginning of this, it started with a second homeowner who wanted to utilize the property when they were not here and realized that at the time in R1 there was a moratorium signed somewhere back in 2001 by then Mayor Bo Satori, eliminating tourist lodging in R1, not eliminating B&Bs in R1, not eliminating tourist lodging or B&Bs in R2. So what Joyce is saying, Alderman, is saying is about the residential area, and the integrity of it is very important. There is no doubt that everybody wants to maintain the integrity of the residential areas. And there already is a number of tourist lodging and B&Bs there. None of these people there's some people that have B&Bs that also applied for weekly lodging. That's absolutely true. But not all B&Bs did that. It would seem if we want to protect the integrity of the residential areas that we should give consideration to taking out of the even ability to apply for a CUP in R1 and R2 for all tourist lodging and all bed and breakfast. And that way that would maintain in R1 and R2 the integrity, and then at the same time also close the loophole on weekly. Then you are truthfully protecting the neighborhoods.
Ms. Schneider, you're next.
Just a real quick question to start. Do you know off the top of your head what the definition of a boarding house is?
The definition of a boarding house?
Mm-hmm. Do they lay out room amounts or anything like that?
I don't think we have a definition in our code. As far as a state code, I don't know of one.
Okay. Because in an R1, you cannot get a CUP for a weekly type thing. And I say again, people have not been doing this for 10 or more years, knowing they were sneaking around. Nobody knew about this supposed loophole until we on Planning Commission 2 years ago, and I was on planning, brought this discussion up, or a year and a half, whatever it's been. That was when it came forward, and that's when people jumped on the bandwagon. And I say again, people who have been doing this for a while should not be penalized. At the same time, you cannot show discrimination and say, well, you can get grandfathered, but you can't. That's discrimination. You cannot do that. You can't be unfair to the people who have honestly been doing what they thought was right. Under conditional uses for R1, you could run a boarding house. Doesn't say how many beds, and if we don't have a description, There you go. Rent a boarding house, get a CUP for a boarding house, so we only have one person for 5 days or for 7 days. So what? I mean, this is what we're being pushed to. This is ridiculous. There is no reason for people to have to try to slide around, find loopholes, or anything else. And that's what the whole city, both us as city people and our constituents, our people who live here, our residents, everybody is being forced to sneak around, and this isn't right. Let's fix the damn ordinance, put the proper time in there, grandfather in who's doing it, and end it.
Mr. DeVito.
Melissa Green was a perfect example. She had a 199 and was operating a weekly rental. And when we addressed this issue last year, she went ahead and got a CUP for her property. So that was the process that should have gone under. I'd like to read just part of this, and it was email from somebody in the community. Said, I'd like to clarify a few things about being a weekly rental business license holder. Last year I received a call from a friend that said we were able to get a weekly rental license and I should tell other people about it. I did tell other people, but few were interested. I went to City Hall, wrote a check, and received a license. I filled out the paperwork and wrote weekly rental where it asked what kind of business I was opening. It was not a backroom deal done in a dark alley with covert operatives. I got a license printed on real paper from City Hall. Then later in the year, I was sent a refund for the license. So that was when we decided that that 199s didn't allow you anything, and that these people were operating under the assumption that somehow it did, and we made it perfectly clear that getting a 199 didn't give you any rights whatsoever. At the first of this year, I was sent a renewal form for my weekly rental business license. That's a little odd. I paid my fee and received a license again. I assumed that the situation had been resolved and that we were free to operate as a weekly rental. If you do not want us operating and are calling what we do is illegal, then please do not renew the license. If you'd like to refund my money that was so eagerly solicited, that would be appreciated. And a question to the city clerk, they were sent renewal forms?
Everybody gets a notice at the end of November, but it would have said 199, businesses not otherwise listed.
Okay, so there was, I understand that was just an auto reply on the city clerk's part. And once again, getting to 199 doesn't allow any specific status to conduct business under any certain category. So, once again, somebody thought they could illegally run a tourist lodging or tourist facilities in R1 and were mistaken. And I feel that we need to go to just to make it easy on enforcement, so that everybody knows what's going on. That we eliminate weekly rentals and go with 30 days.
Mr. Purkeypile, going around the table.
I have a question regarding this. Can the current folks that are operating as weekly rentals, can they apply for a cup and they cannot apply for a cup?
Not in R1, because there's a moratorium on tourist lodging.
Can't do it.
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry, we should have not have talked out of line. I
Well,
apologize.
I just wanted to add one thing. If they live on the property, it's not tourist lodging.
You cannot use for R1.
How many of these?
Well, if it's a separate house, you could. It's tourist. If it's a separate dwelling.
Yeah, you can do a B&B. You can't do a weekly rental.
Well, it says B&B.
Yeah, or boarding house.
So
But if
how
you
do
had
you
a guest-
how do you distinguish between a B&B and a weekly rental? I mean,
B&B, you have to live on premises and you have to serve a meal. I'm sorry, I probably should not do that.
no, I'm asking because I'm ignorant of the facts, obviously.
Boarding house is a room with a bed.
But
and dressing
that's not complete. A B&B could be a weekly rental if you occupy that structure. If you don't occupy that structure, it's a tourist lodging, and that's illegal. but somebody could be under the assumption they have the authority to rent out a room in their home where they live on a weekly basis to tourists, and that is not true. But that person could apply for a CUP because they live on site. If you don't live on site, it's a tourist lodging, and those are illegal.
A B&B is tourist lodging, but it's permitted.
Okay. Go ahead.
It's really important to not mix the terms. In the truest sense, what you're saying is correct, but not in the sense of the code. And a person could apply for a B&B. A person could do a boarding house, and I think there is actually a definition in your code book for boarding house.
Is there okay?
Yes, sir.
I think the people up to this point that applied, a lot of the motivation was also the way you handle it tax-wise. If you rent this house, if it's a separate house all by itself, I guess we could go back to Melissa Green's house that she started with a weekly. She was in R2, which allowed her to apply for the CUP. Had she been in R1, she never could have applied for the CUP and would have probably wanted to tried to maintain that weekly. So what you're finding is a lot of people that have this weekly, be it their second home that they're occupying or a separate guest house on their property that they're utilizing or something, are also doing this for the issue of the tax benefits that they're getting by running it as a weekly. And the reason the $199 was important is because when you start collecting the CAPC taxes, then you can start writing off the utilities, and there's more opportunity to make that property tax-wise work better for you than if it was just a rental piece of property. And that might be some of the motivation, not to confuse the issue here.
Anybody else? Mr. McClung.
Well, back when the city that Water built came into being, they rented everything in this town, by the night, by the week, by the hour. So that's just the way it was. 30 years ago, on many weeks during the season, it would be so busy that you could rent a tent out in your front yard for people to stay in and get good money for it. I mean, the town was that full. You worry about the policing of it. Who's going to regulate it? Who's going to enforce it? Big problem. So just open it up. You want to solve it, just open it all up. And if they can meet the health department, if they can meet the building codes, if they can meet the parking, those things that are truly necessary, let them all open up. Everybody in town.
Mr. DeVito.
The issue at the table here is the unique quality of Eureka Springs, and that is that we are a community. And every one of these erodes that every person that feels they can operate a weekly tourist lodging erodes the fabric of this town we call Eureka Springs. It's Mr. Jasinski brought Sedona, and there's towns right across this country that have lost their identity because they've allowed themselves to become B&B lodgings and tourist lodgings, and the people that made the community what it was that drew people to it disappears one house at a time. And this is an erosion of the fabric of this community. We need more residents here. We don't need fewer residents here. Our population is dwindling, and as our population dwindling, that disproportionately burdens every last resident that's left in this community. So to allow the erosion of the housing in this community will ultimately bring down this community, because there will not be any residents left here to pay for all the services that we provide, because tourists aren't going to do it. People will stop coming here because we're not going to be a community anymore. One of the most exciting things I've ever witnessed in this town was the other night when the community came together for the unveiling of the spheres. That was about the people of this community. And we are unique because we are still a community. But if we continue on this path of allowing more and more people to rent houses that should be for the people that work in this community, or we'll end up being like Aspen, where people have to drive 50 or 60 miles to work here. And I don't want that, and I won't be a party to that, because what is at stake here is the identity of Eureka Springs. And if we just keep selling ourselves like a cheap hooker on the street, people aren't going to want to come here anymore, because there won't be anybody that lives here anymore. And when we lose that, you don't get it back.
Ms. Schneider.
On your ordinance 2167, under section 3, where you're talking about the grandfathered in weeklies and repairs and whatnot, I'm seeing, once again, I've seen this before, that's what I'm asking, with the estimated value of the repair work of more than 1/4 of total property, is there a reason why it's always 1/4?
If you're asking, is there a law out there where it says 1/4?
Or guideliners?
No.
Okay.
But
That's
it is just a
usually used?
typical number that is put in.
Okay. Well, then I would like to make a motion that we accept the city attorney's original ordinance with the amendment of 30 days being changed to less than 28 days, accepted in full with the understanding that grandfathered in means once those places change hands or whatever, they're gone.
Is there a second?
Okay, I'll second this because I understand that it will then come up for discussion if we ever get around to voting. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't like everything that you said there, but I think it's a beginning. I think
Gotta
we
get
need
something
somewhere
started.
to go. I think extending the time that you can rent these things out is going to help a lot. Yeah, and if that business license is not transferable, then once that property is sold, then that's the end of it. You can't rent it out anymore. It's not a rental property. You are not increasing the value of the property by making it a rental property, because once it's sold, that's gone.
It's got a 180-day clause in there, too.
Okay, but I haven't read that. I had a copy of that somewhere, but I've got too much paper here to find it anymore. So, okay, I'll second that.
Mr. Mitchell, you had.
I understand where everybody's going with this, and I won't vote on this for an obvious reason, for sure. But I totally understand what Alderman Joyce said and Alderman James about the integrity of the neighborhoods, and I don't want to muddy the water in any way. And I definitely respect where James is coming from this and the residential and all. I think this town is too costly already for the people that work here to live in town, to be perfectly honest. The real estate is way too high for that. So this is becoming a town of second homeowners, or people that have the means to come in and buy the homes and fix them up and put into that. And that's a shame that's the case. And I understand well Aspen, because we have a place up there, and what they had to do to get for those people up there, and what happened to the people that work in that town and how they had to handle it. The ideal situation to me would be for council or planning to take the issue of the CUPs that can handle, be awarded in R1 and R2 and relook at that and take some of those off of there, boarding house or B&B or tourist lodging, and just get them off of for the residential areas and really put an end to it. Then we're really protecting the neighborhoods, still leaving them open for second homeowners, but the weekly issue is different.
Mr. DeVito.
I disagree with both Alderman Schneider and Alderman Zeller. Those properties could be occupied in perpetuity. I mean, you are in effect rewarding people for skirting the law.
Okay.
And that sets a very chilling precedent. They have no authority to be grandfathered in. They have not abided by the restrictions of our laws. I would challenge that we set up a review process. If these people want to come back and petition council and show what, I forget which person said it, but under state law, they're supposed to keep a log of residents and where they live and where they're from. Now, if somebody comes and petitions us, to allow that rental property, they're going to have to prove all of this. But to carte blanche, to give them a sanction for skirting our law, I mean, no, I can't be a party to that.
Yeah,
Schneider.
I gotta agree with you there.
Okay, yeah, I have a problem with awarding that too, especially since a lot of people signed up after Planning Commission brought this up. At the same time, like I said, you can't show discrimination. If you have someone who's been doing it honestly for 10 or more years, who didn't know better because someone in the city screwed up, they shouldn't be punished, but you can't show discrimination. So rather than punish the few that have been honest and straightforward and thought they were doing things legal, rather than punish them because of a handful of newbies, isn't fair. You can't discriminate. If you want to set up a thing where, yes, they have to prove that they've been doing it for X amount of years, yada, yada, and that is a basis, I'm sure the attorney can come up with something. But for those of you who don't have his ordinance here from a year or so ago, it covers everything. It's a very good ordinance. It gets rid of the weeklies. It makes it fair. It makes it legal. And like I said, it makes it grandfathered, and whether they continue to operate for 20 years or 2 days is immaterial. Once it's done, for whatever reason, it's done. And that includes 180 day. If they don't have any usage, they're out. It's ended.
Mr. DeVito.
I'd move to table this to our next meeting. We don't have a copy of that she's reading from.
Nobody was prepared.
Mr.
My
McCormick.
motion supersedes any other motion.
There's already a motion on the table.
Yeah, I
And
move
a
to
second.
table it.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Is there a
I'll
second?
that. I'll second.
You're seconding his motion? Okay.
To table until the
Okay.
next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Roll call.
Oh, roll call.
Aye.
Okay, wait. Roll call.
Mr. Purkeypile,
Aye.
Ms. Zeller,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
I forgot we were
This is to table, correct? I can
Correct.
vote on. I'll vote on that. Yes, aye.
Mr. McClung,
Yes.
Mr. DeVito,
Yes.
Ms. Schneider,
Yes.
6-0.
Brings us to number 5. The new business is the first quarter financials. Motion to discuss.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
And compassionate, but I signed up for.
You don't want to?
You can have it.
All right. Of course, we have the blue book that lives in the finance director's office. debt service schedule. So if you want to see that, that's where that's available. Everything else will be in the clerk's office. There's the bank reconciliation, the payroll for the first quarter, the clearing account, which is checks that aren't payroll, and cash receipts. And you're welcome to come and look at it or get copies or whatever you need.
Comments? Okay. If none, that takes us out of new business, moves us to agenda setting. Mr. DeVito.
I would like to entertain an agenda item regarding commercial recycling of glass and cardboard.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Purkeypile. I'll get it in a minute.
I'd like to have an agenda item discussing taxi cab space or stand. Just a discussion of the need and possible implementation.
I'll second that.
Schneider.
I'd like to add a discussion of C3s, what's permitted, what's not, and discuss maybe making some changes.
Mr. Mitchell.
I'd like to have the various commissions give us a status report on their priorities for 2013 for the first quarter of 2013. A special emphasis on the hospital, and it would be nice to have it in person instead of just a written report.
I'm sorry, was it CEPC?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean the hospital.
Hospital.
The hospital. It would be nice to have a update on their priorities that they identified for us by the first quarter, and it would be nice to have them do it in person, especially the hospital.
But all commissions?
Ma'am?
But all commissions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so just not hospital then. Okay.
72 seconds, one for Vicky's, one for David.
Okay, you need a second for Ms. Schneider's C3 permitted status.
Second.
Okay. And for David's commission
Second.
update. Second. Yes, sir.
I'd like to add an item regarding the removal of all front corner setbacks from our code. And I'd like to add another item regarding, I'll just give an update of Black Bass Lake Dam and some things that are occurring in that area.
Removal of the
Do we want to know?
I didn't get 2 things.
I'll approve of that. Second, whatever you
removal
want.
of the 80.
Both?
Well, why not?
Focus.
Did I have 2 things you wanted us to add?
Yeah,
What was the
I
first?
did
Oh, you did.
Where does this go?
She did. I'm sorry. She did.
Okay.
Where does this go?
Point of order.
You got
Oh, I didn't know you were there.
She has to
Oh, okay.
rephrase her agenda item.
Not really. No.
Who has to rephrase it? James?
Ms. Snyder.
Okay, on my C3 thing,
Yes.
okay, we also need to include in that discussion the removal of 80 Mountain Street from the C3 usage for religious purposes. Anyway.
Separate issues, Mom.
They're separate issues.
Okay, make it 2 different ones then.
I'll second both of them.
We have a big agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
That's going to be huge. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know where we are. Where did we leave the moratorium on issuing 199 licenses for dwelling? Do we need to put that on the agenda for the next time? Because I would like to see us not do this anymore until we get this question settled.
Put it on there for discussion. That way you
Can we do it right now?
not in agenda setting.
back up.
No, I want to discuss, and I want a motion to do it, so do we have to put that on the agenda for the next time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Anybody else? Okay. Mr. McClung, did you have anything?
Nothing. I think there's plenty on the plate.
Okay. All right, brings us to council comments. Mr. DeVito.
Well, I would like to thank Jeremy McGraw and Robert Norman on the Creative Energy Project and just as colorful event as I think I've seen in Eureka Springs history Saturday night down in the park. It was truly one of those you should have been there events.
Mr. Mitchell.
No.
Mr. McClung.
No.
Mr. Purkeypile.
No.
Mr. Schneider.
Of course. Just want to say, while I was on vacation last month, yes, my Marine retired. He is finally out after 20 years. It was awesome. Cried my eyeballs out. Loved it. Cried as much when he went in. And even though I was on the West Coast, I did keep up with both the meeting and everything going on, including all the phone calls I got. I just have to say I really had to chuckle when Lainey got up during comments to complain about applications not going in. And, gee, you know, my application while I was sitting on planning was put forth twice and y'all wouldn't vote me, and I don't know what your problem is. Anyway, the other problem was SWEPCO. I missed all those meetings. I didn't want to miss them, but I did. But believe me, I followed it. And just one thing that kept striking me, every time more stuff would come up about this whole SWEPCO fiasco, two things. I think SWEPCO may have forgotten or totally disregarded, or maybe somebody in the state forgot, I'm not sure, but Eureka Springs and Hot Springs pretty much support the whole state. Hurt either one of those cities, the state fails. You might want to keep that in mind. Plus, you also might want to keep in mind, SWEPCO, who lives in Eureka. There are an awful lot of us who will be more than willing to teach the young'uns the exact proper way to protest. And my last thing is happy birthday, Steve. My husband turns positively antique tomorrow. Happy birthday, dear.
Ms. Ellie.
That's it.
I don't have anything.
Can't follow that.
One comment I got to make for everybody is that some of the city officials have taken it upon themselves to start rehabilitating the North Main Transit Valley, which is the piece of property that is between the Plainer Hill Transit entrance and the Casa Colina. City officials been taking their own time to go up there and work on that, clean it up, make it nice looking, make a potential park out of it. So if you get a chance, go up there and look at what it's going to be. It's still got some limbs. We took the bucket truck and trimmed up the pine trees and cleared out a lot of brush. So take a chance to go up there and look at it. I think you're going to be surprised how well it is going to look, since it is an entry to the downtown part of the city. The other side of the road we can't do anything with because it's private property. So on our side, we're working on making that look nice. List of events: the May the 14th Arbor Day celebration at, I think it's 1 p.m. Cardinal Springs. 16th to the 19th is Miatas in the Ozarks. 17th is the White Street Walk. The 19th is Books in Bloom, 12 to 5 at the Crescent Hotel. The 25th is Mustang Auto Show. 25th, North Main Musical Park opening at 2 p.m. And 25th, Trout Fishing in America at the auditorium. But there will also, back up to the park opening, they'll do a 45-minute set there at the musical opening. Hopefully we'll get our pole set and our meter run this week for the parking lot. But that's for the continuing project of putting in the restrooms. Every Saturday evening from 6 to 9 p.m. there will be a gallery stroll. 27th, city offices are closed due to the observance of Memorial Day, and the 29th, the next council meeting, and that will be a Wednesday, 29th. I believe. Yes, that is correct. And that's all I have. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.